Hello. Let me just adjust things a little bit here. I'll get started in just a moment. There, that's better. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is Will from the Hermit's Lantern Tarot, and I'm back again to do some free readings. Let me set up by lighting a candle. And I've got a cup of tea here ready to go to wet my whistle as I read. It's a hibiscus tea today, if you're curious. Let's light some Palo Santo. Clear the air. Okay, and I'll leave that to burn on the candle dish. I got out my Gay Marseille Tarot again, and I thought it would be smart to show you all the drawstring bag that it comes with. It comes with this really cool canvas drawstring bag to hold the cards. And there's a printing of the Cupid or Eros. I believe it's the same image from the Lovers card in this deck. So let me pull these guys out. I'll put that aside. There's the box. I'll put that aside. Let me do some preliminary shuffling, and then I'll start compiling the list for the day. Welcome to everyone who's already joined the chat. Hi, Florasoul. Hi, Bella Bella. Hi, Jean. I hope you're all doing well today. Having a nice Sunday, restful, recuperating perhaps. Preparing for whatever is about to come at you next week. Okay, so today we'll do first come, first served readings. I will put a list together based on those who have requested a reading in the chat. If I get to you and you're not here, I may need to skip over you for the sake of time. But it looks like first we will have Florasoul. So I will put Florasoul down. followed by Bella Bella, followed by Jean, and then Bob Hope, I'll add you, and Sanja, I'll add you. Okay, so here's our list to start. Florisol, Bella Bella, Jean, Bob Hope, and Sanja. Okay. So, Florisol, if you'd like to post your question, we can start with you today. Okay, here we go. Florisol asks, how did Zine feel about Bushra when he saw me in the morning? Okay, so someone named Zine saw you, Bushra, I believe, this morning, and you want to know how he felt about you. Okay, let's see. We'll start with 3 cards, and we'll be reading from Zine's perspective. Okay, so that's the riffle shuffle. Let me do some overhand shuffling. And we are asking for Florisol. How did Zine feel about Bushra when he saw me in the morning? All right, first card down, the Emperor, followed by 5 swords, followed by 9 swords, and the Emperor is looking at something, so I'm going to pull another card to see what that is, and it's force or strength. Okay, so I don't have hardly any context here, so let's see what I can pull out of this. But we obviously have 2 people um, facing one another, and I think based on the way you phrased your question that we have, and the way the cards came up, I think the Emperor is Zine, and then that would make you, of course, strength or force. And so we see him seeing you, and then at his back, we have a whole bunch of swords, and they're increasing from 5 up to 9. Uh, Significantly, the emperor is not looking at these swords. The emperor is turned away from them very much. And so the way I would read this across, um, he sees you as someone, this is trite perhaps, but someone who, at least in that moment, if not more generally, he sees as being very strong, right? Someone who can handle situations even when there might be some struggle involved, someone who knows how to kind of grab the lion by the jaws, so to speak, and focus on whatever issue or problem or trouble it is that is coming up. Um, for that reason, the emperor may not always be comfortable um, getting close to someone represented by force, because think about what the emperor does and what force is doing. The emperor commands, gives orders, edicts. The emperor is the one who rules over everything, right? And commands and gets to sit on the throne, right? And has their um, emblem represented by the little shield with the eagle on it, here with the anarchist insignia spray painted on it in this particular deck. But so the emperor doesn't even have to hold up to sort of prove their worth. The emperor likes to feel comfortable. Also, of course, we recognize it's the fourth of the major arcana or the triumph cards. And so the emperor is about maintaining control and stability, and force can overpower that. So this suggests to me a certain feeling of apprehension or uncertainty about whether it would be a good idea to engage with this person or get closer to this person, because if he is seeing you, I hope I'm getting the pronouns right. If the emperor person is seeing you as someone who's willing to wrestle a lion, that might cause the emperor to second guess whether or not it's a good idea to get involved with you, because if you'll wrestle a lion, what else might you do? Right? And compare that to, like, for example, had the Empress card come up, if we saw the Emperor looking at the Empress, well, the Empress would be willing to exercise her power indirectly or only in ways, most of the time, that the Emperor sort of approved of. And force is doesn't the figure on force, who here I believe is modeled after Frida Kahlo, the fantastic um, artist, Mexican artist of the early mid 20th century. Uh, if the emperor issues a command to force or strength, however you'd like to call it, um, she may or may not comply with that command, right? And so that, I think, is part of why we then see all of the swords at the emperor's back, and why they're kind of going up. The emperor wants to maintain order in his life, and he's willing to do that sort of um, through wielding not only a scepter, but perhaps sending the whole army after you, so to speak, with his swords. Uh, and and so to sort of bring this home and answer your question, what was he feeling about you? I think he was feeling a certain sense of uncertainty and hesitation, although he almost certainly would never have shown it, because the emperor can be quite stoic. Uh, and the emperor's quite strategic, right? The emperor's the one who can command armies and conquer nations. And so I would say this person is being strategic about deciding whether or not it's a good idea to get any closer to you. So that's where I would center this reading on these two personalities represented by the function of the Emperor and the function of the Force card. If I had more context, I could maybe draw out more details with what's going on with the swords. For example, the Five of Swords can have to do with an illness, a sickness of some kind, if that in any way plays into it. It can have to do with having a breakthrough, which in this particular card is illustrated by the way that the center sword actually breaks apart parts of the other four swords. The Five of Swords can also have to do with a kind of obsession, might be too strong a word for it, but a fixation on something that isn't necessarily like healthy, right? And that feeling is like intensifying because we have a clear movement of increasing from 5 to 9, as though there's a kind of feeling that a change in order needs to take place, or that there's an increasing intensity of pressure might be one way to put it. So I don't know if that fits with the context of when you saw, or when this person saw you, Florisol, this morning. But that's what I see here with these cards. Someone who, Zine, being someone who doesn't ever want to relinquish control and is maybe feeling some hesitation about getting close to someone who would not be easily tamed, right? Someone who can tame a lion, so to speak. So welcome to anyone who might be joining and who might be new. My name is Will from the Hermit's Lantern Tarot. I'm doing some free readings today. And so for those of you who might be new, I see some folks have requested in the chat. I'll go ahead and add some more people to the list here in just a second. If I add you to the list, then I'm going in order of the list. And if I get to you, I'll call your name. And if you're here, you can ask your question. And if you're not here, I may have to skip over you and move on to the next person. So I'm adding Blessed One to the bottom of the list. I'm adding Anne's Human to the bottom of the list. I'm adding Cat Goddess to the bottom of the list. And I'm adding Stormborn to the bottom of the list. So here's the current state of the list. We've done Florisol's reading. Bella will be next. All right, so I see Bella's questions, so let's do a reading for Bella. And Bella wants to know how is Abedin thinking about me after seeing me? Okay, so for Bella Bella, how is Abaddon thinking about me after seeing me? Yes, and Anne's human, happy birthday. Very happy birthday to you. Okay, so Bella Bella, how is Abaddon thinking about me after seeing me? We'll do 3 cards. Let's see what we get. 3 batons. 8 batons. And the Hermit. Hmm. Hmm. Well, the movement from 3 batons to 8 batons suggests an increasing effort or pressure. Um, there's a very much a sense of I don't know any context here, but it's like whatever might be between you, it's like the wall is kind of getting bigger, and the hermit is sort of classically a figure who is alone, right? Um, the hermit is a solitary figure who says, "I don't want to do all of the things that society says that I should be doing. I reject um, the beliefs that society thinks are important, and I'm gonna go off and climb this mountain and live in a cave. And I'm bringing my lantern with me so that I can see my way, so that I can think, and so that I can better understand the world." So if he sees you kind of as a hermit who who's maybe got their way blocked a little bit, or it could be a hermit who kind of has a fence up around them a little bit. And so, I don't know if this is someone you used to date or someone you have a crush on or someone you're hoping to get close to or whatever it might be. Um, but this person sees you as a very solitary person, and it's as though they think you want to be solitary, right? So, like, I'm going to make some assumptions now that may be totally off base, and you'll have to tell me if I'm going in the totally wrong direction. Uh, but like if this is someone you have a crush on, or if someone you used to date, if there's any kind of romantic interest here, these cards are saying that Abaddon um, is thinking of you as someone who sort of is alone and likes it that way. Someone who would prefer to be alone. And so if your goal, and again, I'm totally making assumptions about your question. If your goal is to get closer to him, um, you would want to find a way of communicating or signaling to him that you're not the hermit, so to speak, right? That you're not interested in living alone in a cave in the mountains, right? Metaphorically speaking, that you are open to like something warmer and like a relationship. But again, I'm totally making assumptions based on what I think is embedded in your question. And so um, if those assumptions are incorrect, we could take it a different way. So obviously, the key card here is the Hermit. With the 3 and the 8, the other things to think about would be other people. And so there is something a little odd I'm picking up on just now with this spread, in that in my system of reading the Marseille Tarot, 3s and 8s both correspond to groups of people. And 3s tend to be a smaller group, and 8s tend to be a bigger group, but they both represent um, collections of people, right? And the hermit is, of course, a solitary figure. And so a tension that that I'm noticing in this little spread is between being alone and being with others. But in both cases, it's a question of you maybe seeming inapproachable. Like either you're the hermit and you're alone and he thinks that you prefer it that way, or you're like shining your light on groups of other people, big groups, work groups, social groups, or smaller um, social groups, in which, like, well, if you're around these other people, how am I going to get to you? If that makes any sense. So, um, let me see in the chat. Hi, Storytime Kitchen. I'm adding you to the bottom of the list. Okay, so Bella, if you're there, is this someone that you have like a romantic interest in? You're welcome, Storytime Kitchen. Okay, well, I'm not hearing from Bella Bella. Let me make sure I have my chat set up correctly. Yeah, I've got live chat selected, so it shouldn't filter anything. So, I hope my assumptions are close to correct, but seeing the hermit with all of the batons um, suggests someone who's on the one hand alone, um, and not unhappy about that, right? And on the other hand, perhaps someone who's also simultaneously able to mingle amongst groups of people. Uh, but in either case, or perhaps in both cases, we could say, someone who is maybe a little tough to get close to. Okay, so next on my list is Jean, if Jean is here. All right, Jean is here, and Jean asks, may I ask what I's feelings and intentions are towards me after our interactions on Friday and yesterday? All right. And welcome to anyone who might be joining. My name is Will of the Hermit's Lantern Tarot. I'm doing some free live readings today. Okay, one more riffle. Okay, so for Jean, we're asking what are I's feelings and intentions towards Jean after their interactions on Friday and yesterday. Okay. All right, we'll start with 3 cards and see what we get. Page of Cups, Chariot, 2 coins. And the Page of Cups is looking left, so let's throw down another card. Popes, who is also looking left at the Hanged Man. Okay. Where can I put these? There. All right. Actually, I want to keep them away from the candle. All right. So let's see. We have several figure cards with human figures on them. 4 of them come up. Hanged Man, Popes, Page of Cups, Chariot, and then a 2 of coins to end the string. And so I'll say, let's start actually at the end, and then we'll work up to where it ends, right? So the two of coins, this is about an exchange of values, right? So I would think here, really good conversation, like valuable insights being passed from one to the other in ways that perhaps put you on like a windy road that's going to take you somewhere. That's how I often read this ribbon that is on the in between or joining the two coins. It reminds me also sort of the um, the infinity symbol or the lemniscate, right? And so a great sense of like two bright things coming together with a lot of potential value in the exchanges that the two of them are sharing or even agreeing to. That could be another way of putting it. With the twos, I often think, except maybe with the swords, I often think of the way in which there's a kind of implied agreement, right? Almost like a shaking of hands or a transaction where like both are on sort of um, an equal footing or equal plane, and they're in a symmetrical way passing something back and forth to one another. And so when you're asking about, how another person feels about you or intentions are about you, there's very much a sense at the end of all of this, which we will have to talk about, that there's a mutual valuable exchange or transaction happening between the two of you. And so that's often nice to see. Uh, let's take a look though at some of these other cards because there are a lot of people involved here, and so we have to figure out what to do with them. Some of them may represent actual people, um, and others may sort of represent the feeling or atmosphere of a situation more generally. And so uh, I kind of think, the way you phrase the question was about what well, you said eyes. I guess I don't know it's a he. But what eyes, feelings, and intentions are towards you. And so the way I kind of would read the distribution of persons here, I think you are showing up as the Popess, and unless there's any other person who is involved in the relationship between the two of you, I would read these other three, I think, as representing um, how he feels he's changing in relation to you over time, right? So, like, the Hanged Man is him, the Popus is you, the Page of Cups is him later, and the Chariot is him again, even further on, right? So let's read these left to right then and see what we can gather. And if there is some other person involved that would make sense to include here, then let me know and we'll see what we can do with that. But so the Hanged Man or the Hanged One, this person feels like they have no agency to act. They're upside down. They're stuck, they're hanging around, so to speak. There's a sense of stasis. There's no movement. This is feeling stuck, right? And so I think at one point in the past, he felt like nothing was happening, right? Nothing was happening. And maybe he's able to accept that situation, at least temporarily. But it's not a particularly comfortable place to be in because even if the Hanged Man is, um, like responsible in some way for them getting themselves hung upside down, that doesn't mean they want to stay like that forever, right? And of course, he doesn't, right? As we'll see with the later cards, he does get himself out of that situation. But in relation to you, I think he felt like um, sort of stuck, right? Like nothing is happening. I'm just hanging here, sort of bare, and and then we have you represented by the Popess, who is um, intelligent, bookish, knows a lot, can be intellectual, maybe a writer type, or someone who's just interested in um, tarot cards or the occult or things like that. She's someone who, as you can see by the figure, by the illustration, she's very covered up, right? We see her face, we don't see her hair, we don't even see her ears, and we just see her hands a little bit. So she's very covered up. Someone who's, in that sense, sort of hard to get close to, right? She's, think of the Popess compared to something like the star, where the star is the opposite of covered up, right? But the Popess is very covered up. She's got this veil or mantle hanging behind her. So, like, is she hiding something? Is there something back there that she doesn't want us to see? What is she writing in her book? What has she been reading about? She also tends to stay silent, right? She's looking, but she's not often the type to speak out. So he may think of you as someone who maybe is having thoughts or knows things, but not always verbalizing those things, right? And so there might be a sense of he's like he feels like he's hanging upside down here, um, because he like can't get that open communication to happen because she notoriously stays silent, right? And just to jump ahead before I get to these other two, that changes, right? Because the silence of the Popess is very much um, the opposite of what we see with the Two of Coins, where there is now an exchange of something valuable, right? So, so these two figures, even though they are looking in one another's direction, he's kind of looking up at her, and she's vaguely looking in his direction, but nothing's happening, right? Or nothing was happening would be a better way to put it, uh, until later, right? So there was a sense of stasis, not moving, like the values weren't being exchanged. Uh, and then something changes because the hanged one inverts themselves, gets upright, and becomes a Page of Cups, who is now looking in the direction of the Popess and kind of like um, perhaps wanting to offer her something from this little cup. Metaphorically, that would refer to like emotions, feelings, right? Like offering some emotional vulnerability of some kind. Although with the page, it tends to be a little bit not shallow, but it's just not as deep yet as it would be if it were a knight or a queen or a king or something like that, right? This is the smallest of the cups that the court cards of the cup suit have. Uh, and so there's perhaps a sense of him feeling timid or like shy, like, okay, I'm going to offer you this thing. I'm going to be vulnerable a little bit. I'm going to take the lid off my cup, so to speak, and see, like, is this going to be okay? If I open up to you, are things going to work out? Maybe will you talk? Or if it's not actually talking, like, will the Popess let the veil down or no longer be silent about what is in her book because the Page of Cups is revealing something of themselves, right? So that is in the center of this 5 card spread, this like moment of emotional change that gets him from being the stuck hanged one into this kind of emotionally vulnerable and uncertain page of cups who's wanting to kind of pursue something, follow a dream, uh, that I think they see embodied in the Popess. So then what happens? Well, it works, right? The Page of Cups offers his cup, and it works because now the page isn't a page, the page is turned into like the general in the army, right? With the chariot and the car, and it feels like he can drive, and now there's motion happening. There's no more this hanging upside down in a moment of stasis, not going anywhere. Now we have movement, and the chariot's going somewhere. Things are moving, things are going. What the Page of Cups did, what he did in opening up emotionally, is get things going again. Now, that said, the other important thing to notice is I think this is someone who's really struggling with their vulnerability. Okay. And I say that because of the 3 cards I see here representing him, or this person. And in order to get unstuck, he's got to be vulnerable. But as soon as things get moving again, he puts on armor, right? Here, the Page of Cups is draped in these little flowy cloths, fairly exposed, fairly vulnerable, offering the cup up. And then now that things are going, the armor's back on, right? And that doesn't mean that there's not vulnerability underneath it. But I think there's kind of a pattern here with these cards of like vulnerable, um, getting things moving again, and then maybe a little bit of putting the armor back on, right? Once things get going, maybe a little bit of closing off. But all of that said, things did get going, the energy's mixing, things are moving around, valuable insights are being exchanged between the two of you. And so, we'll see what happens next. But I think one thing to recognize in your interactions with this person is likely that there's a I won't say that this is an emotionally unavailable person. It's someone who struggles with feeling emotionally vulnerable. And so it's something that this person has to work at, and they are, but it's not like they already have done the work. They're currently doing it. Okay. So that's what I'd see there, um, for Eugene. I'm just going to peek at the chat. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. I hope that gives you some insight into what might be going on in this person's feelings and mind, in their interactions with you, and what maybe their own personal um, journey is, or path is, or struggle is at the moment. But see, okay, one more thing I'll add, and then I'll move on to the next person. The one other thing I'd add is this person might have a kind of pattern of opening up emotionally, but then making things intellectual because they feel safer in that way, right? Turning it to conversation about ideas more than about feelings because they find maybe they find both of those things valuable, but the ideas feel safer than the feelings do. And so there could be some of that happening. That might be sort of the way of putting on armor is like, instead of exchanging cups with you, let's exchange coins because I feel safe with coins. And look how shiny and pretty they are. Aren't they wonderful? Uh, and then I don't have to give you a cup, right? So that kind of dynamic might be going on with them. Okay, so next up, Bob Hope. You're welcome, Jean. You're very welcome. So if Bob Hope is here, I will read for Bob Hope. Oh, good. Bob Hope's here. All right. All right. So if you post your question, I can read for you. And while we're waiting, I'll just pull out the list so you can all see. So I'm going to do Bob Hope's reading, followed by Sanja, Blessed One, Anne's Human, Cat Goddess, Stormborn, Storytime Kitchen. And then we'll see where we're at once we've gotten through those folks. And I may add more to the list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but that's 10. So we'll see. Like if some people aren't here and we skip over them, I may add more. But 10, most of the time, after about 2 hours, I start to lose my steam. Okay, so Bob Hope, do we have a question? Okay, I'm scrolling back up through. Okay. So way earlier, Bob Hope had asked, "Thank you from Hope, Bob Hope. I'm watching To Catch a Thief. Will I get a girl like Grace Kelly?" That's the question. So watching the film, it's Hitchcock, right? To Catch a Thief, and Grace Kelly stars in that. I know that I have seen that movie, but it has been a very long time since I've seen it. And so the question, I think, kind of tongue in cheek, is will I get a girl like Grace Kelly? Will Bob Hope get a girl like Grace Kelly? Okay. Okay, let's see. All right, let's see what we get. Is Grace Kelly on the way to Bob Hope's? All right, we've got some fours. We have four batons, four cups, King of Wands, looking at the Chariot. Huh. Huh. Well, I'm trying to decide if the King of Wands or the Chariot could ever be a Grace Kelly type. Um, what a fun question. So let's start at the far left at the beginning. Four batons change into four cups. So a practical arrangement uh, that doesn't necessarily lend itself to any kind of romantic interactions, and that doesn't seem at all like it's going to change, does change in that the practicality of things becomes tinged emotionally. It becomes sweeter, you might say, or more beautiful, you might say, right? Instead of these batons that one uses to work and build and compete, or maybe cooperate, we've got these beautiful cups that have those look kind of like lotus flowers to me in them, and presumably are also filled with some kind of nourishing liquid, right? We use cups to toast one another, to celebrate, to drink, um, and to nourish ourselves as well, right? So a practical interaction or a practical dynamic that could have to do with your workplace. I often think of batons as work, and with the four, we think of the office, we think of wherever you might get your work done, we think of the desk, we think of the chair, that kind of thing. Turns into something much more comfortable. With the Four of Cups, we think of the home, we think of the couch, we think of the armchair, we think of maybe the kitchen where you store your glasses in the cupboard, that kind of thing. And so then two figures appear, and one is the King of Wands. This is um, the person who manages things, the person who has knowledge and power over practical things in their life, and particularly over um, often their work or career, assuming that they do work or have a career, right? And they come across this person, or they find themselves looking at this person who drives in, who sort of shows up. This is a fairly fast card, the chariot is, it moves, right? And so this person shows up, right? Drives into their life. And I'm I don't think that I know enough about Grace Kelly to say whether that could be Grace Kelly. Uh, so I just don't know. And obviously it's not the actual Grace Kelly, and I think the whole question is kind of um, for fun, anyways. Uh, I suppose I do, from what I can remember about her, I do think that she's a very strong, like the characters she tends to portray, have a certain strength about them, which would very much match with the chariot, with the figure, the charioteer who's driving the chariot, right? Um, but I sort of think the more interesting thing that we get with the card is the way with the chariot, there's always the question of whether or not this person is coming or going, right? And so this, just as quickly as this person drives into your life, they can drive out of your life as well, right? And so they can show up, but that doesn't mean, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that they stick around, right? And so when this person does sort of pull up in the driveway, so to speak, if the King of Wands, who I'm reading here as representing you, Bob Hope, continues to sit, then what's gonna happen is he just ends up stabbing himself in the foot, right? The point of this baton, if this person's not careful, will hit them in the heel, right? So, it's like if the King of Wands isn't ready to get up and move, like, there might be some metaphorically speaking, a kind of chase involved, because if this chariot person shows up, they also might keep going. And if the King of Wands doesn't get up and do something about that, the person can disappear as quickly as they arrived, right? So I can, unfortunately, my own memory and cultural competence of Grace Kelly does kind of prevent me from offering, I think, a 100% satisfactory answer to this question, and I regret that. Um, but there is someone, I would say, who drives in, and then the question is, are they gonna get out of their chariot and stay, or will the King of Wands have to convince them in some way to stick around? Okay, you're welcome, Bob Hope. I appreciate that question. I wanna sort of just say, because, um, I have no problem with questions that are kind of just for fun. Kind of love that. And so, um, like, don't feel that anybody that you need to like shy away from those kinds of questions. I use the tarot for any and all things, from ordinary everyday stuff like, oh, if I'm cooking something, or when's the mail gonna come, or like all kinds of things like that. I also use it for like major life events and choices that I might have, or to read about politics, or history, or things like. So I think the tarot can do anything, right? So you can ask a question about, you know, am I going to meet the next Grace Kelly? And I think the tarot can answer any question that you ask it. Okay, so next on my list is Sanja. And awesome. Sanja's got their question in. I'm just going to peek through the chat real quick. I can't read everyone's messages just for the sake of time. When I'm reading the cards, I'm not even looking at the chat. But um, so one thing I want to address also while I shuffle for Sanja's question is paid readings, because I see Storytime Kitchen um, asked in the chat why I don't do or can't do paid readings. And so I'm going to answer that. And I would like to, at some point in the future, offer paid readings, but it's a little tricky in the particular place where I live. That I need to jump through some hoops or I could get in trouble. And I don't want to get in trouble. So like if I'm going to collect money, I need to declare that money as income. And if I do that, then that requires me to have a business license. And if I'm doing it specifically for tarot, I'm required to have a fortune telling license. And I don't have those things. So I could get in trouble. And I don't like getting in trouble. So that's why I do not currently offer paid readings, and why I only do the first come first serve free readings here on YouTube, because I still like to do it. I find it really fun. And it also, I think, makes me a better reader. The more different kinds of people and questions I can read for. But if I were charging money right now, and I were caught, that could get ugly for me. And so I don't want that. So that's why. But that may change in the future, and I will be sure to let you all know as soon as it happens. Right? Okay, so Sanja's question is, who likes me, but I don't know that? I'm Aquarius, the one with hair. Yes, I'm looking your channel and playing my piano like crazy. Oh, good. I'm glad you're playing your piano. That's cool. I used to play the piano. I haven't played in forever, but I took lessons when I was a kid and I really enjoyed it. And I hope your hair appointment went really well too. Okay, so Sanja wants to know about a person who likes her, but she's not aware of it. She doesn't know it, right? So we're going to pull 3 cards for Sanja, and these 3 cards are going to describe a person. Okay, let's see what we get. All right, 3 cards. The Star, the Devil, 10 Swords. And let's pull one more to see what the Star is looking at, the Pope. Hmm. Things are going through my mind. What an odd little spread. The Pope, the Star, the Devil, and 10 swords. And so we're looking for the question is about a person who um, likes them, but they don't know about it. And so the thing that just really strikes me is the way that even though the figure on the star card is facing in the direction of the figure on the Pope card, it's not clear that she sees the Pope, right? Um, and maybe it's not the Pope so much as I don't know if you can see there are 2 other figures with their backs turned. So, the first thought that comes to me is that it's a student, like someone who is a student, but then I also wonder if it could be sort of the teacher, so to speak, right? Because the Pope is clearly looking at the star, but the star sort of has her eyes directed at one of these other fellow students. And so there's a kind of maybe triangle thing kind of going on. And maybe I'm digging too hard into some of the details, but when I read, as those of you who've been watching my channel for a while, you know that um, I think it's important to read the images, right? As opposed to like memorizing set meanings. Although sometimes I do employ those when I find them useful, given given the question, but the question matters. Uh, but reading the images are what I think is important. Okay, so who is it that is um, interested in you and you don't know? Um, is there anyone who's like a teacher? Or if not a teacher, then like maybe not actually a teacher, but someone who has that kind of status, because definitely think you're showing up as the star, and you said the star is your sign, so that makes perfect sense, and it also just makes sense given the context of the question, because I'm not sure the star sees this person looking at her. Maybe she's focused on the students, but it's like, who is it that has an interest? And I'm not saying it's an actual teacher, right? Um, and Sanja says, not in a freaky triangle, right? But it's not like a love triangle so much as it's almost like a triangle of gazes, right? Like maybe there's someone you're looking at, but that person's not necessarily looking at you, but there is someone else who's like above that person, like hierarchically, who maybe does have who's like looking in your direction. And I would say it's also someone who like you wouldn't likely imagine has an interest, right? In the same way that if we think of the Pope as a figure, like culturally speaking, the Pope is a religious figure who's supposed to be celibate, right? I think. I'm not Catholic, but that's what I understand. It's like a priest kind of a figure, right? And so I'm not saying it's actually a priest or actually the Pope or anything, but it's someone kind of like that, like someone you wouldn't expect to have an interest, but then has their eye sort of focused in your direction. And you don't see it, number 1, because it's because you're not looking in that direction. You're looking diagonally down here. But number 2, because it's just not someone at all who you would expect. So, I haven't even talked about the other 2 cards here because I do think that they're important, and they kind of tell me, like, I don't know that I would want to know if whoever this Pope person is that is has their eye in your direction, because if you look at the composition of the images on the cards, the Pope has 3 figures, right? And then the devil has 3 figures. And so it's like the Pope turns into a devil. And then there's a war where the 10 swords have to come out and we have the headstone there. So like um it's almost like I don't know who this I don't know if you'd want to get involved with a pope who's really a devil, right? It's the kind of person where I think if something did happen between the two of you, it would seem like forbidden, right? Like the pope shouldn't have his eye pointed in the direction of this woman with no clothes on, right? He shouldn't, number 1. And then number 2, it turns out that he's a devil and not a pope at all, right? Or maybe it's something about the interaction between the 2 of them that turns him into a devil, but I kind of think this is saying you're better off not knowing, right? If there is this person who's got their eye on you, and I don't know why you asked this specific question, but maybe a part of you is suspecting something or is thinking something about someone, and this is kind of saying like better that you don't know, right? So I would I would accept and be satisfied and happy if everything I'm saying, if you're just like, "Who could that be? I don't know who that is." Good. Like, leave it alone, and maybe you don't ever need to find out, and that's just fine and dandy. Because I don't think this is gonna go somewhere that you wanna go, right? Uh, the other thing I'd say is, like, if this dynamic seems to start to arise with anyone, if there's someone in a kind of authority position who's like part of a business or a school or an institution or organization of some kind who you would never expect is like looking your direction and you find that they are, then I would say like watch out because that person might turn out to be a devil when you think they're a pope, and everything ends up not fun with 10 of swords at the end. Yeah. So sort of like leave well enough alone while being aware that if there's this person out there, maybe you don't need to, or maybe you're better off not knowing, better off not getting involved with that person. Okay, so that was Sanja's reading. Next up on the list is Blessed One, if Blessed One is here. Yes, devilish people. Yes. You're welcome, Sanja. So, Blessed One, if Blessed One is here. I don't have the list open at the moment, but I may reopen it depending on how things go with the rest of the list. I'm about halfway through the original list or the current list. Okay, so Blessed One, this is your final call. Ah, you're here. Great. All right, so if you post your question, I can read for you. Thank you, Sanja. I appreciate the comment and the support. Okay, I think I found Blessed One's question up in the chat. Can I ask, Blessed One asks, can I ask, has Jonathan moved on to a new relationship? Is he over with our relationship that we have? Okay, so has Jonathan moved on to a new relationship? Is he done with the current one? Okay, so we'll pull 3 cards to get started. We're looking at this from Jonathan's perspective. Is he done with the relationship? He moved on. Okay, first card down. 3 coins. Followed by 9 coins. Followed by 6 batons. So, this one is pretty straightforward. I don't think he knows yet. He is trying to figure that out for himself. And he's putting in the work to think about it, to gain some knowledge about it for himself, sort of doing his research, so to speak. There is a sense of wanting to make a change and move forward, but it's like he feels like he needs to do 1 step back, 2 steps forward, that kind of thing. Like there's still some work to be done before the moving forward actually takes place, right? So to look at the 3 cards that came up, the 3 coins, this is like there's something growing, something is beginning to take shape that he finds valuable, and it does take shape, and then he finds that he kind of has a change of ideas, a change of plans, maybe a change of values. Almost, it's almost giving me kind of like You know that old saying, as soon as you get what you want, you don't want it? It's giving me a little bit of that kind of a thing. Leaving him to sort of have to work on figuring it out, where he's like having to make a judgment about what it is that he does want and what it is that he does value. And I don't think he's finished making that yet. Like, I don't think that he is certain for himself um, what he wants, unfortunately, right? It's not a clear, oh, yeah, he's done, which would be like if we got any of the tens, that might suggest that. Or oh, yeah, he's moved on. Maybe a chariot might give us that, or even the fool might give us that. Um, but it's also not giving like he's clearly started a new relationship. We don't have any of the aces, especially the ace of cups or the two of cups. We don't have that. So he's trying to figure out for himself what is important to him, and he's doing some work on that and trying to assess it. And until he has worked through that, I don't think I don't think he knows, and so that's why you're getting this kind of answer, which is um, that he still has to figure it out. So he doesn't know the answer to the question. I will say that given uh, the coins cards here and the movement of them up from 3 to 9, there's definitely a sense of having attained at one point something that he finds like that he wants to grasp, something that is valuable. Um, but then, it's like it gets a little off balance. It's like with the 8, we've got kind of a perfect organization, but then the ninth coin comes in and sort of sets things off balance a little bit to the point where he begins to reassess or make a change to reassess his values or change his plans or change his ideas, right? And so now he's in this working, researching, figuring it out path of doing that, and that's just where he is right now. So you're welcome, blessed one. I don't know if that is what you wanted to hear, but he's a little bit in kind of limbo right now. Yeah, I don't see anything from these 3 cards indicating that he's clearly with another person. I think he's trying to sort himself out. And I would say yeah, I agree with you. If you find out that he is with someone else, then you're out the door. Yeah, good for you. All right, so next up we have Anne's Human. So if Anne's Human is here, I can read for you. Oh, and I found that's right, it's Anne's Human's birthday. Okay. So, Anne's Human asked earlier, "It's my birthday today. What will my overall month look like?" Okay. Happy birthday again, Anne's Human. We'll do a 3-card spread or reading for the month of February for Anne's Human. You're welcome, Blessed One. Okay, one more riffle. All right. For Anne's Human, what will the month of February look like? So this is a general month ahead reading. We'll pull 3 cards and see what we get. First card down, 5 swords. All right, Tower, Queen of Swords. Oh boy. Well, not the cards I probably would have chosen for myself had I eliminated random chance from the tarot, which not make it valuable. So I'm trying to think of the right thing to say. We've got a lot of swords and we have the tower. And so those of you who know tarot, know what that might mean. So, well, let's just read it left to right. 5 swords to start with. I would read the 5 swords. Um, this is something not super great. Uh, this, could just mean, since we're reading generally for the month ahead, this could just mean an illness, a sickness, right? Like, could be as simple as a common cold. Because I read fives in terms of the physical world, particularly like the body, right, or the hands, sometimes like grasping things, and swords. They hurt, they can cause trouble, they can cause pain, that kind of thing. They also can protect and enforce order and that kind of thing. Um, so it could be as simple as, you said it's your birthday, so I don't know if it could be a hangover from drinking too much on celebrating, that kind of thing. Although I don't see any cups here, so that's maybe unlikely. Uh, but it can also just refer to needing to get your hands dirty, imposing some order on your life, and that isn't necessarily an easy task, right? That you might have to sort of take a punch to the gut, so to speak. for that to get done, right? Okay, so then we've got the tower. Hmm, a minute ago I mentioned getting things in order, like getting your hands dirty in order to get things in order. And so, if we're reading in a really ordinary kind of way about what's the month ahead, this can just mean like, let's clean house, right? It could be literally, right? Like the house has got too much stuff going on in it, and so we sort of have to like tear it down, so to speak, and literally clean the house, right? If there's too much disorder and you need to get your hands dirty imposing order on it. Uh, More conceptually speaking, if we move outside the realm of ordinary events, the tower can refer to having to come to terms with or face contradictions that are showing up in life. That your tower, so to speak, your house, metaphorically speaking, is built on a shaky foundation, and so you need to let it fall in order for it to be built up um, again better, right? So that's potentially some tough stuff. Although I'd rather if I have to see the tower, I'd rather see it in the middle than in the last spot. And so, with the Queen of Swords, two ways we could look at this. One would be that the Queen of Swords represents some person in your life who is there with a sharp mind, ready to offer um, true but not always kind judgments or decisions about maybe the order of your life or house. The other way to read this, if the Queen of Swords doesn't represent a person in your life, it could more represent the atmosphere uh, of the month for you. And in that case, I would read it in terms of anticipating a feeling like you're kind of always anticipating that something bad is going to happen, right? And I say that because the Queen of Swords, she's seen it all. Everything that life has thrown at her, um, she's endured it, and she's had a rough time going through it, right? Um, but she's survived, and she's wiser for having endured everything she's been through. And it gives her a very keen eye in judging and assessing whether things are going well now. The flip side to that is that sometimes the Queen of Swords focuses too much on anticipating the next bad thing to happen because she's seen the darkness of the world. She's seen the darkness that life can throw at a person. And so sometimes, even when the darkness isn't there, she's just waiting for night to fall. We could put it like that, right? She's never the kind of person who is misinformed or exaggerating, but sometimes her gaze is too focused on what is going wrong or with what could go wrong as opposed to what's going right or even just what's like going okay, right? So, I think I'd like to throw 2 more cards down to make a cross, and we'll put one at the top and one at the bottom, and the one at the top is going to, give some advice about what to do, like what attitude would be best for you to take, and the bottom card will be the attitude to avoid. So, like, "Do this, don't do this." That's what we're gonna get. So top card is Strength. I know it's gonna sort of get cut out of the frame, but I'll put it up there. Strength on top. So do strength or be strength. And at the bottom is the Hanged Man. Don't be the Hanged Man. So this month, if you get sick, if something happens that's a punch in the gut, if life's contradictions are causing your house to fall down, or you just feel like there's too much um, clutter, things are falling down around you, that kind of thing. And if you feel like thoughts about what isn't going well are prevailing, the response to that is to be dominant in the situation, to overpower it, right? Force your way through these troubles or ideas. Don't just hang around and do nothing, right? Don't don't feel like you're stuck. If you want things to be different, you're going to have to wrestle the lion to make that happen. You might have to shove things down someone's throat, so to speak, right? Um, you need to make that lion afraid of you, right? Don't, if something happens this month that doesn't go your way, don't be the martyr. Don't just hang around and say, well, it couldn't be helped. There's nothing I could do. Other people made this happen, and now I'm upside down with arrows in me, and that's just what happens. There it is. This spread is saying you will have some degree of agency to wrestle with this lion who might be troublesome to you, and so you should wrestle it. Right? This is not the time to just say, "Oh well, couldn't be helped. I did what I could." Especially if doing what you could is not doing things right. So very much a spread that is suggesting, in the face of any troubles that might come this month, um, you should act boldly, right? Um, you don't have to be gentle about it. Wrestle the lion. So that's what I would offer you, Anne's Human, as some prediction with the first three cards of what's to come, and some advice about where you could take that and how you could turn a situation that maybe isn't quite what you'd hoped for into something better. Okay, so up next, Cat Goddess. Fantastic. Cat Goddess is here and just posted their questions. So let's read for Cat Goddess, who asks, what can I potentially expect for this month in February? Please and thank you. Okay, so another month ahead reading for Cat Goddess. Let me shuffle. Okay, one more riffle shuffle. All right. For Cat Goddess 8586, what can Cat Goddess potentially expect for this month in February? So we'll do 3 cards and take it from there. All right, first card down is Temperance, followed by Strength or Force. Wow, followed by the Pope. So let's see what Temperance is looking back to 8 coins, and let's see what the Pope is looking forward to. Knight of Wands, who is looking at 7 cups. All right. Let me gaze at these a moment. Okay. Well, the first thing that stands out to me is Temperance and Strength because they're mirroring each other. Temperance looks back and Force or Strength looks forward. And I would read these as different aspects of yourself in this coming month, or different ways that you are responding to the things that come your way this month. And so Temperance is generally someone who is very flexible, right? Someone who is trying to get things mixed or measured in the right proportions in their life and trying to like find that perfect mixture or concoction uh, in a moderate kind of way. So, like, I'm doing a little of this, I'm doing a little of that, I'm mixing this part of my life with that part of my life. And I suspect that because Temperance is looking back at these 8 coins, well, number 1, it could have to do with money, right? So there could be something about your trying to be moderate or temperate or flexible or, um, to like spend the right amount of money in each area of life to get it just right. Yeah. If it's not specifically something to do with money, the other way of reading this could be about the way your life is organized. And I say that particularly with the 8 of coins in this deck because we've got these little gears. Each of the coins is stylized as like a little cog in the machine, like each is a little gear. And so they're all sort of um, identical and working together. And that is a part of the temperance card in that sometimes temperance can go overboard in trying to get things just right to the point of it being obsessive. And so I don't know for sure if that is something you would imagine in your own context, your own circumstances. Uh, but the opening cards are very much suggesting a sense of like almost like wanting to be perfect, wanting like perfection, and maybe getting a little bit carried away with that, maybe overvaluing um, getting things mixed the right way. And, the other thing I'd add is with the 8 of coins, the 8 of coins can be thinking like other people think, because I see 8 as groups, and in this case, coins as ideas, right? And so there could be a sense of like you're trying to organize your life very carefully, so that it makes sense to other people, right? So there's that situation which transforms into a bunch of other things, with a movement from temperance to strength. And so temperance is moderate. Temperance is like trying to follow the recipe perfectly. Strength throws the recipe out and says, "No, I'm gonna do it this way." Right? And so that's the first big tension that I would see for you coming up, is a movement away from being like, "Oh, should I do a little of this, little of that?" No, how about I wrestle a lion? Right? To the point where anybody looking on might be like, "What is happening?" Right? Um, I I thought that you were carefully mixing the potion in your cups, and you're not you're not like that anymore, right? That lion is a little bit afraid of you. And so instead of moderation, there is power, there is strength, there is force, even we could say domination a little bit, though not necessarily of a bad kind, right? I don't see the force card's not like it's not like the devil where if there's domination happening, we maybe should be afraid. With force, this needs to happen, right? Someone does need to stop being moderate so that they can overpower the lion, right? Okay, so um, that's that gets us halfway through these cards that came up. And then we get to the Pope. And so here I think very much of a teacher, not necessarily an actual teacher, but someone who is passing what they've learned on to somebody else. Right? And so it could be that, you're showing up later in the spread as the Knight of Wands, and that you are taking some, insight from an elder or a teacher or an advisor, a counselor, someone who you sort of would look up to, that you're taking that and sort of running with it, because Knight of Wands, they're on their horse and they're ready to go. They're ready to move. They're ready to travel, literally or metaphorically, uh, so that they can take action, and make progress. Right? Perhaps it's in building something, because I see wands as the item or tool we use to build something. Right? Uh, I do see then at the end that we get 7 cups, and so, sevens are a tough number. They can represent a challenge. They can represent some kind of, discordance, or, yeah, discord, or discontent in some way, right? And with cups, I would, think of this in terms of your feelings, right? Emotions, that kind of thing. And so, I think you might reach a point by the end of the month where you are maybe feeling a little uneasy, about some of what you really had to do earlier in the month, especially in this movement from temperance to strength. I suspect that you're the kind of person who, um, doesn't like to wrestle lions, so to speak, right? You're maybe the kind of person who prefers to sort of sit back on the sidelines a little bit, watch what others are doing, maybe follow them, follow the recipe, as I said earlier. But at some point, I think you're going to, for your own good, be forced to go off of the script, to improvise, to be a little heavy handed with things. And by the end of the month, you might look back and think, oh, I don't know if I feel good about that. Why didn't I just do what everybody else was doing? Why didn't I listen maybe to the Pope? Like, why didn't I listen to the teacher, so to speak, or follow the well ingrained institutional advice that everybody else is following? But you didn't, and I don't think you need to dwell on that, because these cards are clearly saying that the moderate way is not going to work for you this month, and it's not only okay but necessary for you to sort of boldly grab the bull by the horns or the lion by the teeth, so to speak, right? So that's what I would see with these cards for you, Cat Goddess, a kind of not just permission, but insistence that you be bold coming up. And it may be the kind of thing that might a little bit get you, the others may not completely understand or approve, but you'll be doing it for the right reason. And so I wouldn't pay too much heed to any feelings of unease that you might have for doing what you really did need to do. Okay, so you're welcome, Cat Goddess. I hope you have a wonderful month. And I would just remember this woman wrestling the lion. I would channel that going into February. So Stormborn followed by Storytime Kitchen. Stormborn, if you're here, you are next. Thank you, Cat Goddess. I appreciate that. So Stormborn, are you here? Okay, Stormborn is next. If Stormborn is here. Okay, then Storytime Kitchen. I don't know why YouTube doesn't believe you're a subscriber. So, but you're here now. That's what matters. And so I don't know if you might have posted a question earlier, but you're welcome to post it or repost it. I remember on Thursday, I did a reading for you. It was about a guy, right? And he was with another person, and I think we did 2-3 card spreads. One where it was how he sees things with you, and the other was how he sees things with this new person. I remember we got you were the Popess, I think, and then the other woman showed up as two queens, I think, if I'm not confusing your reading with another. So yes, I do think I recall more or less. I recall that. And hi, welcome to anyone who might be joining. My name is Will of Hermit's Lantern Tarot, and I've been doing some free live tarot readings today. I'm probably getting near the end of the live stream today, but if you would care to subscribe to the channel, you'll be able to see when I schedule future live streams. And I usually go on a first come, first served basis, and sometimes I go for an hour and sometimes I go for 2 hours, and last week I went for almost 3.5 hours, but I was that wiped me out. That was a little bit much. Today I think 2 hours is is better. So the way I do it is I have a list written down here, and I periodically show it on the channel. So I'll show it to you now just so you know what I'm talking about. So here's my list for today. Right, and I'll periodically hold it up, and then if I get to someone and they're not present, then I skip over them and move on to the next person, and I can always read for them next time. But okay, so Storytime Kitchen says, I have reason to believe, yes, there were two queens. I have reason to believe that both interpretations are true. He has more than one woman on the go, and he is trying to turn a discriminating woman into a soft touch, and it's not working. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that that either of those interpretations is necessarily mutually exclusive. That he could, when we see court cards come up, they can represent actual people. They can represent aspects of oneself. They can represent like the atmosphere of a situation. Because we only knew for certain that there was one other person last time I interpreted it as one queen transforming into another. But sometimes it's more than one of those things at once, right? Like a court card can represent another person and maybe also a situation, for example, right? So okay, so Storytime Kitchen says, I'm a bit torn between asking to look into that situation further and asking what the likely timeline is between us. So let's think about it. I mean, if we ask about how things are going with him and this other person, it doesn't necessarily give you like it might be interesting and it can be fun, but it doesn't necessarily, it might give peace of mind or it might not. It's not, and there's not necessarily like it could make you feel good or it could be entertaining, or it, if it says things are going well, then that and then what is sort of I feel like that where that goes. So we could certainly do that. But maybe it's more useful to do a sort of question that's more about, you could ask something like, what is the potential for a relationship with the two of you? You could do that. That would be one idea. We could just do a 5 card. We could do like a 3 cards to say what is currently the status of things between you, and then we could do one on top for what you should do in response to that, and one on the bottom for what you should not do. I find that a spread like that can often get me out of jams where I'm just like, what is happening? 3 cards for that. And what should I do? And you do 2 cards for that to make a cross. So we could do that, could be an option. Okay, let's try that. Okay, so we're going to do 5 cards, 3 describing the current state of affairs, so to speak, between you and this other person. And then we'll do 1 on top, how to approach situations for the best possible outcome for you. And 1 on the bottom, what to avoid. And we read those cards on top and bottom in terms of one another, in tandem with one another. All right, let's see what we get. All right, so 6 of batons, 5 of batons, and the lovers. Well, that sounds right. So, the path that you've been on with this other person is a 1 step forward, 2 steps, or what is it? 1 step back, 2 steps forward kind of a deal, right? It's not like a clear movement where everything just goes from point A to point B. There's some detours, there's a work that needs to be done. It hasn't been smooth sailing, so to speak, right? And so that has led you to a situation where it feels unstable, right? The 4s are stable and then 5s destabilize the stability of the 4. That's one of the ways that I read them. And so maybe you feel a little bit like you're grasping at straws, or that you are trying to like figure out what is the work that I need to put in order for this to go in my favor, so to speak. And the lovers, which uh, in the Marseille tarot, and this is a Marseille type tarot based on Marseille decks, I don't read this card as representing a, a wonderful, beautiful partnership or relationship, because there aren't just 2 people on it, right? And so with the lovers card, we've got 3 human figures suggesting we already know there's at least 3 people involved here, right? And so this is about the ambivalence that situation is setting up, right? Um, I would not read this as um, perfect union of 2 people in a symmetrical relationship, right? I would read this as there's a love triangle, right? We've got 3 people, and then we've got Cupid up here in the air, who's maybe influencing things as well. So this is the current status or description of what has been going on between the 2 of you. A kind of rocky road, overgrown road leading to instability in what's been built up between you, and in trying to figure out how to grasp on to things, um, hesitation, ambivalence, uncertainty, right? So there's our situation. Now we're going to throw one at the top and one at the bottom to describe how you should respond to this. So the card at the top, what you should do, 8 wands. What you should not do, 9 cups. So the 9 cups makes perfect sense to me. Okay, I think I got it. All right. So here I would read the 8 wands as think practically about what what is even within the realm of possibility that you could do. Right, with the 8s, I'm thinking of thoughts, and with the batons, I'm thinking of practical strategies, uh, for what you could do to sort of, well, it could be putting pressure on him, uh, but, the other thing I think is that this card looks kind of like a wall. Like each of the batons are sort of interwoven with one another in a way. It also is kind of an X, like blocking the path. The 9 of cups at the bottom saying, "Don't do this." This is sort of pretty clearly saying, like, um, don't expect you're going to get your wish. 9 can be the card, or 9 can be the wish card traditionally. 9 of hearts or 9 of cups is the card of your whatever your wish is. The 9 of cups can also mean um, a change for the better, or making decisions or judgments based on feelings, love, right? Changes coming, like change of heart, that kind of thing. So it's almost saying, like, don't expect a change of heart. Don't expect a change for the better. Don't expect you're going to get your wish. Instead, think more practically. And, I'm also just noticing that in this particular deck, that all the arrows, right? And so I do think the actual images on the card are important, which is why the deck is important. But so, like, this is not telling you to throw your heart at him. This is telling you maybe to think about, um, how to put it? It doesn't necessarily say to give up. It doesn't necessarily say to forget about him. It's almost kind of saying just keep going for the moment, but in a practical way. And it's also saying, like, don't be careful of getting your heart too much more involved here. The 9 of cups at the bottom is really saying avoid expanding emotionally towards this person. So I don't know if there are. And you ask in the chat, the 8 of wands doesn't mean communication in this deck. It can mean, so the 8 of wands in Marseille style decks in the system that I use can mean a social group, right? So this could mean, well, okay, this could mean spend more time with, like, a group of people who you interact with socially, as opposed to love, right? Um, I wouldn't necessarily read it in terms of communication, although, if you're with other people and socializing with other people, it could mean, or like imply rather, um, communication with those people. But, yeah, so like this, one way of reading this would be like focus on your work, but that doesn't really fit your question. And so that's why I'm not sure that that's an appropriate interpretation for this particular card. Uh, but I think seeing it in terms of a social group could make sense. Like it could be like a social club, although that's not something people really do, right? Um, but if there is, it's kind of trying to say it without saying it. It's kind of saying like stop focusing on him so much. I think that's how I'd put it. At least in terms of ways that are allowing your heart to enter the picture. Um, I so you asked in the chat, I guess it's definitely telling me not to reach out then, huh? I mean, I don't think it is. I wouldn't think like no, the 8 of batons I do not think is saying reach out and confess your love again or anything like that. Um, no, I would not get that with the 8 of wands. Um, the 8 of wands is more like put your thoughts in order. And not only your thoughts in order, but also um, think practically about what it is that you can do to build the best life. And perhaps that includes socializing with people who aren't him, right? At least for now, obviously, things can change. Um, but, it also goes back to me thinking about the reading from last Thursday is when you showed up as the Popess and the other person showing up or other people showing up as those Queen of Swords and Queen of Cups. Um, at least for now, I think it makes sense to sort of focus on other social relationships that you have as opposed to this guy, because whether or not he decides to come back to you or not, on the one hand, focusing on strengthening relationships with other people would always, I think, be a good idea. But it is possible, thinking about what I see here with what I saw last Thursday, it is possible that almost like you keeping quiet could end up, and by keeping quiet, I mean not reaching out to him, could end up um, almost putting some more pressure on him. Because I remember in the reading from last Thursday, it was like, there is something I think that he is simultaneously kind of frustrated by and also attracted to in your Popess-ness, right? As opposed to the Queen of Swords person who, like, she'll just come cut off your head, right? And the Popess will sit there quietly, and I think he's frustrated by that because he can't change the Popess, and also he's attracted to it, right? And so maybe you focusing on other social relationships, more practical ones as opposed to loved ones, um, is good for you regardless of him, but also could play in your favor later on with him. So there you go. That's it. Um, yeah, moving forward, moving back, some instability, trying to get your hands on things, and then eh, a very much a sense of ambivalence about where the relationship is going. Focus on other social relationships, practical ones, building something that is good for you regardless of what he decides to do. And then, at least for now, like, don't sit around waiting for him, hoping that he changes his mind, or changes his heart, rather. Um, he either will or he won't. And, and it's, you know, that's his loss, so to speak, while he sorts himself out. Okay, so hi, Stormborn, and so hi to everybody, and hi to anybody who might be joining me. My name is Will of the Hermit's Lantern Tarot, and I've been doing some free live tarot readings today. I'm over my regular 2 hour mark, and so I do think I am going to wind down. If I wasn't able to read for you, and I know there were folks in the chat that were hoping to get on the list, and I just ran out of steam, but I've got to go get dinner made, and because it's almost dinner time here where I live. But if you are interested in getting a reading from me in the future, if you subscribe to the channel, you'll be able to see more easily when I um, schedule a live reading session, and then I do them on a first come first served basis. So, like, I think I scheduled today's on like last Friday or something, and so you can pop into my channel and see when I'm going to be there, um, and assuming it fits with your schedule, you can sort of be first in line for readings. And so, because I don't charge for readings at the moment, although as I said earlier today, I may do that in the future. I hope to be able to expand into that at some point, but not as of right now for complicated reasons. But since I do the readings first come first, or for free, I feel like first come first serve is sort of the most fair. Like, whoever's the most invested presumably will pay the most attention to the channel, and then that person, assuming it fits with their schedule, can sort of get in line first, as opposed to um, some other method. So, anyways, that's my plan, and I do have a big week at my day job coming up, starting tomorrow, but I hope to be able to schedule another live session soon, because I enjoy doing them and I enjoy spending time with you all and reading the cards, and hopefully helping to provide at least a little bit of clarity for whatever situation it is that you might be dealing with. And so that's going to do it, I think, for me today. I will call it an evening. And I hope to see you next time. And if I read for you today, thanks for being here, and thanks for letting me read for you and offering your question and engaging. And if I didn't get to read for you, I'd love to read for you next time. All right. So stay tuned and have a good night. Be kind to each other. Thanks for being kind in the chat. What of it I saw, I can't read every message in the chat because it goes so quick as I'm reading the cards. But from what I saw, you were all civil in the chat, I think, and so thanks for that. So take care of each other, be kind to each other, be well, and I'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.